Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Litvitational 2. This is the precursor to Cirque to CFL, a 16-man invitational with some of the best players from the entire world. And for our seeding, you're going to have Cosmos, Beast Mode Paul, the LCQ winner, which we'll get to in just a second, and Epic Gabriel in 13th, Aaron, Shattuck, Lima, and WebJP in 9th, Osimo and Cola in 7th, The Buzz and Apollo Kage in 5th, Shootone in 4th, Light in 3rd, Mia in 2nd, and our first seed is going to be Zomba. And really quickly for the LCQ spot, we're going to be looking at the Invitational 2 qualifier, but I'm only really talking about 3 players because I think those are the ones that are the most likely to make it in, and that's going to be Peanut, Anathema, and Chunky Kong. And of those 3 players, I would expect it to be Peanut just because I think Mega Man actually does fairly well into Rob, and Donkey Kong is obviously going to have a losing matchup versus both of those characters because, you know, he is Donkey Kong, and Anathema definitely has a shot as well. I mean, all 3 of those players have a shot, that's why I'm mentioning all of them, but just based off the matchup and also how good he was at the last Invitational, I'm going to give it to Peanut. So let's kick it off with the pools phase. Our first pool is going to be Zomba, Osimo, Aaron, and the LCQ winner, which I do think is going to be Peanut. And 2 people are going to be going out through the winner side, 2 people going out through the loser side. And Zomba is definitely going to be my top seed for this pool. He's coming into this event extremely hot with his massive win at Genesis. I think Rob does fairly well versus Ryu. And considering how well he's been doing versus Tweak recently, he should be fine versus Aaron. Now, I do want to say I do think that's more of a Zomba versus Tweak thing than a Rob versus Diddy Kong thing. He's just very good at understanding how Tweak reacts to certain scenarios and how to punish him for it. And Aaron's style of Diddy Kong is much different than Tweak, so maybe he gets thrown off there, but I doubt it. I will say though, Peanut definitely could give him issues, as I mentioned literally 2 seconds ago. Mega Man does do fairly well versus Rob, and Peanut is going to be up 3-1 versus Zomba historically, and the one time that Zomba ended up beating Peanut was at the last Invitational in the losers quarters, even though I believe Peanut beat him in the winner's side or in the pools phase, so we could see a repeat of Peanut winning in the pools phase, and Peanut is also going to be my second choice. I think he's going to be going through on the winner's side. Hopefully he actually makes it into the bracket because I would look kind of silly if he didn't. I think that Mega Man does extremely well versus Diddy Kong, and if I had to pick between Ryu and Mega Man to favor, I would favor Mega Man in that matchup. Focus is pretty much invalidated, and Fireball can be a little bit annoying, but Mega Man is still going to be winning in the Zona game, and his boxing up close is still pretty phenomenal as well. He literally has a Shoryuken of his own, so overall, I do think that Peanut is going to be our second seed, and our third seed is really going to come down to between Osimo and Aaron, and I'm going to give Osimo the benefit of the doubt just because that guy is incredible, but Aaron is one of the wild cards in this game. He hasn't been going to as much stuff recently, but when he's playing at his best, he is one of the highest peaks in the entire game, so if he pops off, I definitely could see him getting through on the winner's side, but I'm going to pick Zomba and Peanut to go through. Our next pool is going to be Mia, Cola, Lima, and Cosmos. And straight up, I think this is possibly the worst pool that Mia could have gotten. Every single one of these players has a very real chance versus him. All of their characters do fairly well versus Game Watch, going even at worst, in my opinion. And Steve isn't going to be that much better. And he hasn't lost to any of these players before. And he's still going to be my pick as the first seed because he is that guy. But it's a very scary pool. And the second seed is a very interesting conversation. And I'm going to pull up Lima's record versus Cosmos and Cola really quick, as well as versus Mia. As you can see, they have that really competitive set at Rise and Grind that Lima low-key should have won because he choked super hard on this Game 5. He's going to win his last set versus Cola, but Cola also takes one at Santa Paws, which was very recent, and both of those sets end up going to Game 5. And versus Cosmos, this set was quite some time ago, and more recently, he's going to end up taking it. And Lima is going to be my choice for the second seed of this pool. Cola and Cosmos are just such massive wildcards, especially Cola. I have no idea how he's going to perform because we just haven't seen a ton from him, but I'm still going to pick him as my third seed because we have seen more from Cosmos, but he hasn't been looking that good aside from Umabora, where he was quite good. So maybe if he's able to recapture some of that magic, and I definitely think it's a possibility, he could come out as a top seed in this group, but I think more likely I'm going to go with Mia and Lima just because they've proven their consistency over and over again. Our next pool is easily the hardest one for me to decide because you're going to have Light, Apollo Kage, WebJP, and Beast Mode Paul. And if you look at Light's recent set versus these players, he's up 1-0 versus Beast Mode Paul, though it does end up going Game 5 at Rewired Fist. He's lost his only 2 encounters versus WebJP, and he's lost his last 2 counters versus Apollo Kage. And normally in this situation, I would give Light the benefit of the doubt because I say he's very good in the run back, and he is very good in the run back, but he lost the run back to both Apollo Kage and WebJP. Now, is that going to stop me from giving him the benefit of the doubt? No, I don't know why I said normally. I'm still going to do it here. He's a top 10 player in the world. He should be able to adapt, and I think Beast Mode Paul is going to throw an absolute wrench in this bracket because I think he's got a 50-50 chance with Light, actually 55-45 in Light's favor. Apollo Kage, I would actually favor Beast Mode Paul to win it just because I think Snake Hero is a really bad matchup for Snake, and versus WebJP, I would heavily favor WebJP versus Beast Mode Paul because that matchup is abysmal for Hero, and it's not that much better for Sephiroth either. So it's really going to come down to this matchup of Apollo Kage and WebJP because I think both of them have the same chance of beating Light, and Apollo Kage does end up beating WebJP at Genesis. So I'm going to be kind of boring here. I'm just going to go with Light first, Apollo Kage second, WebJP third, and Beast Mode Paul fourth. But in all honesty, I'm just going with the projected CD because I have no clue. Editing proof block here, I forgot to look at the Apollo Kage versus Beast Mode Paul head-to-head, and Beast Mode Paul is going to be losing in it overall, Apollo Kage winning 2 of their 3 sets, but yeah, Beast Mode Paul taking their more recent encounter, and that was 5 months ago, so I'm sure AK has worked on the Hero matchup, but also Beast Mode Paul has gotten significantly better at the game, so I would still favor Beast Mode Paul, but AK's beat it before. And our final pull is going to be Shootone, DeBuzz, Shattuck, and Epic Gabriel. And I'm also going to be going with a projected seeding for this one, but it's not because I'm not confident in the choices. I'm actually fairly confident in the choices. I think Shootone is going to be the first seed. Him and DeBuzz surprisingly have only played twice throughout the entirety of Smash Ultimate, despite being some of the best players since the game came out. And both of those sets went into Shootone's favor. He hasn't dropped a game in either of those sets, so you would expect him to win this matchup. I'm not sure what characters are going to come out. I doubt it's the Olimar Ditto, though I personally would love to see that. It's probably going to be Aegis versus Rosalina or Aegis versus Min Min, but just based off the history, I'm going to give it to Shootone. And Shootone versus Shattuck, Core, and Aegis is just not a fun matchup for Core, so I'm going to say that Shootone is ending up taking it. Then you're going to have DeBuzz versus Shattuck, and historically, very rough matchup for Shattuck. The first set is 2-0 in DeBuzz's favor, then 3-0, then 3-1, then 3-2. So you're noticing a bit of a pattern. Every single time it gets a little bit closer for Shattuck, so this could potentially be the set where he ends up winning it. And if that's the logic you want to use, I think that's absolutely fine. But I'm going to go with the guy that is up 4-0 in the sets because you got to give him a little bit of credit there. And then our final seed is going to be Epic Gabriel. And I don't think he's going to win any of these matchups. And it's no offense to Epic Gabriel. He's just in the pool with all top 20 players in the world. It's kind of a tough draw, but he is going to be on the Rob. Literally anything is possible on that character. And Epic Gabriel is also a super fundamentally solid player. So there's definitely a possibility of the upset, but likely I think this poll is just going to go as seeded. And now we can move on to the main bracket, but we're not going to be using this bracket just because it's the projected seeding, and I want to go with the pools that I predicted, so we're going to be using the Google Sheet made by the lovely ICOOKIEMONSTERZ. Their link will be down below as always, and our first matchup is going to be Zomba versus Lima. Now, on paper, you would expect Lima to win this matchup. Rob Bayonetta is definitely in Bayo's favor. Rob just gets clipped by pretty much everything that Bayo is throwing out. The angle of side B as well clips Rob when he's standing on the ground, which isn't super great. Rob is combo food. She's one of the few characters in the game that actually keeps Rob in the disadvantage, and overall it's just not a lot of fun. But also, they've played twice before, and Zomba has won both of those sets. He's coming into this event extremely hot, being the winner of Genesis X, so he better win this event if he's playing like he was at Genesis. Then you're going to have Shootone versus Apollo Kage. They played twice before, AK winning it at main stage and Shootone winning it at Crown, and both of those sets are fairly old at this point. I do think that Aegis does pretty well versus Snake. The disadvantage is just super difficult, and you are able to very easily edgeguard Aegis because you have access to Nikita, and a lingering back air also does the trick, but I'm going to give Shootone the benefit of the doubt here just because he is very good at the Snake matchup as well. There's just so many amazing Snake players in Japan that you kind of have to be if you want to be a top player in that region. Then you're going to have Mia versus Peanut, and Game & Watch Mega Man is definitely a matchup that is going to be in Game & Watch's favor, and also Mia is arguably the best player in the world, so I'm going to say that he ends up winning it, but I have to point out again that Peanut was so good at the last Invitational that genuinely anything is impossible. And our final winner side matchup is going to be Light versus DeBuzz. Now, I want it to be noted that the only time DeBuzz has ever beaten Light pre-quarantine, or post-quarantine rather, was at the last Invitational, but Light did end up beating him twice in the grand final, so I'm going to go with Light, but it's something to keep in mind. In the loser side, you're going to have Cosmos versus Osimo as our first matchup, and this record is going to be 4-1 in Osimo's favor, so he's definitely going to be my choice to win it. Now, Cosmos, he got that one. He can make the upset, but you got to go with the guy who's just been extremely dominant in the head-to-head, and it's the exact same thing for Shattuck and Beast Mode Paul. You're going to have Shattuck winning 2 very recent encounters, one of them at Santa Paws and the other one at Let's Make Big Moves, or Luminosity Makes Big Moves, and both of those sets were a 3-0 in Shattuck's favor. I think Corrin is a pretty difficult matchup for Hero, and also Shattuck is clearly very good at it. And then you're going to have Aaron versus Cola, and this one's actually pretty interesting because, as you can see, they have played a bunch. It's going to be 3 and 5 in Cola's favor, but also they haven't played in 2 years. It's been quite some time since the two have faced off. I'm still going to go with Cola just because we've seen more from Cola recently. Even though it hasn't been a lot, he still got top 8 at Miami. I believe it was a 9th at Port Priority as well. So we've clearly seen amazing results from him. He's still in quite good form. And I'm not saying Aaron's not, but I simply just don't know if he is. And then finally, you're going to have Epic Gabriel and Web JP. And I think Sheik does really well versus Rob. It's still Rob. You can die at literally any moment. And Epic Gabriel definitely has those combos unlocked. But Web JP also has his combos unlocked. His damage output is phenomenal. And I think he's going to take the set. Our first matchup in Losers 9th is going to be DeBuzz versus Osimo, and I do think that DeBuzz is going to take this one. I think Rosalina actually does pretty well versus Ryu. You just don't get to get any value out of Focus because you're getting hit by Luma and Rosalina pretty much every single time, and you just get bullied in the disadvantage, as well as Fireball not being super useful in the neutral because Luma's either just going to eat it or Rosalina is going to down B it, and that's not any fun. It should be noted that Osimo probably has a decent amount of experience in the matchup because there are a decent amount of Rosalina players in Japan, but they're not going to be on DeBuzz's level, though you could say the same thing about any Ryu player that DeBuzz has played, and it is their first encounter, so it's going to be a very interesting set because both of these guys are the top echelon of the game, the cream of the crop, so it's going to be a banger regardless, but I think DeBuzz should win it because the matchup is in his favor. Then you're going to have Shattuck versus Pima, and I do think that Mega Man actually does pretty well versus Korn, but not well enough where I'm going to doubt Shattuck. He's also won in their only encounter, which was fairly recent at Santa Paws, so I do believe that Shattuck's going to take that one. Then you're going to have Apollo Kage versus Cola, and they haven't played since the last Frosty Fausting, but overall it's going to be a 3-1 record in Apollo Kage's favor, so I am going to expect him to win the set, but as I've already said like 30 times in this video, Cola is just such a wild card. He has arguably the highest peaks of anyone in this tournament. Maybe not because you have players like Light, Mia, Shuton, Zamba, but he's definitely up there with the best of the best that this tournament has to offer. But is he going to be playing at that level? I just don't know. And then finally, you're going to have Lima versus Web JP, and this is another tricky one. These two players have never played at least offline. They played once online, and Lima did win, but I don't really take that into consideration. And I would say that Sheik Bayonetta is an even matchup, maybe slight Bayo favor if I had to choose one. And I'm ultimately going to go with Lima just because he has more reps under his belt. He's a more veteran player. He has more experience. But Web JP, he's that new up-and-comer. He's got fire, and he's got a lot to prove. So maybe that vengeance is going to take him that win over Lima, but I think Lima is going to close it. And we have our winner semis matchup, Zamba Shutone and Mia Light. And for Zamba Shutone, they've played quite a bit. 5 of those sets going Shutone's way, 3 of them going Zamba's way, including their most recent encounter, which was 9 months ago, but their most recent encounter. And both these guys have been pretty exceptional in 2024, as you can see Shuton's results right here. 3rd at Delta 7, 5th at Umabora, 9th at Genesis, coming in extremely hot. But if you remember, Zamba won Genesis, and even though Aegis Rob is a pretty bad matchup for Rob, you have a clear win condition in it, which is get the Edgeguard, and Zamba is very good at playing to his win conditions. I think he showed that at Genesis, and he was just amazing at that event, so I'm going to give the American the benefit of the doubt and say that he's going to win it, but I'm not going to do the same thing for Mia and Light, even though it's a bad matchup that Light is very good at. He was exceptional versus Meister at Genesis. Mia just hits you once, and you die. Light literally is able to make 3 mistakes, and he might not even make those 3 mistakes, but considering the risk reward is so heavily skewed into Mia's favor, and he's just hitting so hard, I think he's going to take this one. In Loser 7th, you're going to have DeBuzz Shattuck as our first matchup, and as I already established, I think that DeBuzz is going to win this one. Maybe the pattern will continue, but if the bracket turns out like this, that means the pattern didn't continue, and in that case, I would heavily favor DeBuzz because not even superstitions are going to be on Shattuck's side, though I want to say there's a very real possibility because this guy is very good at the game. Then you're going to have Apollo Kage versus Lima, and history definitely favors Apollo Kage here. It's going to be 4-1 in his record, and I also think Snake does really well versus Bayonetta. It's not as bad as the Bayo players make it out to be, but it's definitely a losing matchup for the character, and AK should take that one. And for loser quarterfinals, you're also going to have a repeat of pools with Shutone DeBuzz and Light Apollo Kage, and my reasoning isn't going to change. I think Shutone's going to win. I think Light's going to win the run back. I'm less confident about this set just because AK has won their last 2, but I think the pools phase is going to be very indicative of how those 2 sets go. And our top 4 is Zamba Mia in the winner's side and Shutone Light in the loser's side. And Zamba Mia, I would definitely expect Mia to take it, even with Zamba's form. It's just such a bad matchup for Rob. And I know Zamba's already had to overcome a couple of those in this bracket, but after watching their set at SmashCon where Zamba was hitting pretty much a 0 death every single game. Like, there weren't actual 0 deaths, but he would kill Bia without really taking any percent, and he would still end up losing the game just because the disadvantage and the ledge trapping were so difficult to deal with. He's going to have to perform miracles in this set, and in order for him to win, I think he's going to have to rely a lot more on the Rob cheese than he normally does. Usually, Zomba isn't one to play with the top of his hand because he wants access to Rob's jab, his down tilt, his grab, and fair enough, that's why Zomba is the best Rob in the world, because he's able to box with the character much better than the other Rob players. But versus Game & Watch, you gotta hit that character once, and you gotta kill him in order to have success. So I'm very curious to see how Zomba plays that matchup. Is he gonna try to better play on Mia, which is my guess of what he's gonna do, or is he gonna go for the cheese? It should be a banger. And then you're gonna have Shootone Light, and this is a record that is 5-1 in Shootone's favor, but they've only played once post-quarantine, and it did go into Shootone's favor at Crown. And I also think Aegis does pretty well versus Fox, so I do think Shootone's gonna win that one, but the 5-1 record isn't quite as convincing as it may seem. So in the loser's final, you're going to have Zomba versus Shootone. And if Zomba's able to do it in the winner's side, that gives me even more confidence for him in the loser's side because he's able to show proficiency in the matchup. Clearly, his neutral is going to be good enough, and his edge guards are going to be in point where he should be able to beat Shootone again. And the rematch of the winner's finals, I think, is going to go the exact same way as the winner's finals, where Mia is going to come out on top. I'm very interested to see how Zomba is going to play that matchup, though, because I think it could be super telling for Zomba if he could be the best player in the world, because that's what he should be shooting for at this point. Mia is definitely a roadblock in his way, and this tournament is a great way to test how he has adapted to that matchup. But with all of that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy the sport. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there. As you probably noticed, there's a webcam in this video. There's normally not. I'm not going to be doing it for every video, but it was just something fun to try out. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.